Sharon Kinney's story isn't your typical true crime case. Her story involves a series of highly suspicious deaths, multiple trials, and an eventual prison escape that left authorities and the public wondering if she would ever be found. Sharon was born Sharon Elizabeth Hall in Independence, Missouri, on November 30th, 1939. She spent her childhood in the surrounding area and seemed to have a fairly typical upbringing. Accounts vary on how normal her life really was, but by her teens, she had developed a reputation for being very outgoing, so to speak. When she was just 16 years old, Sharon met James Kinney at a church function. James, commonly known as Jimmy, was a good-natured young man who quickly fell for Sharon's charms. They started dating, and in 1956, despite their youth, the couple got married. That same year, they welcomed a child. By most external appearances, the Kinney household was an ordinary mid-century family. However, beneath the surface, there were signs of tension. Some friends and neighbors suspected that the couple argued often, sometimes over finances, and sometimes over Sharon's alleged infidelities. On March 19, 1960, Jimmy Kinney was found shot in the head in the family home. Sharon claimed that their 2-year-old daughter had accidentally shot him with his own weapon while playing. At first glance, the scenario looked plausible. The weapon was in the house, and a toddler could have picked it up. Further, such tragedies do tend to happen when you give a literal toddler a high-powered weapon. However, the authorities found several details suspicious. For instance, the placement of the weapon and the wound did not conclusively support the claim of an accidental shooting by a small child. Part of the complication arose because of a life insurance policy. Shortly before Jimmy's death, Jimmy had taken out a policy that benefited Sharon, which raised eyebrows among investigators who wondered if Sharon had a financial motive. Notably, the policy paid out double in the case of accidental death. Rumors also spread that Sharon was seeing other men, which added yet another layer of suspicion. Despite these rumors, authorities did not gather enough evidence to charge her immediately, and James Kinney's death was initially ruled accidental. The community, however, was split on the matter, with some believing her story of a tragic accident, while others quietly gossiped that Sharon had done it. Later that year, another death would thrust Sharon into the public spotlight for a second time. Patricia Jones, the wife of a man named Walter Jones, was found shot to death on May 27, 1960, in a secluded area near Kansas City. Investigators learned that Walter, who was in the midst of marital troubles, had been romantically involved with Sharon. Accounts differ about whether Sharon and Walter were having a serious relationship or just a fling. According to some sources, they had been very serious and had been seeing each other over the long term. According to others, they had been seeing each other often in just the weeks leading up to Patricia's death. Sharon and Patricia were known to each other, and witnesses testified that Sharon told them that Patricia had confronted her in some capacity about the affair. Patricia was eventually found dead, lying in a lover's lane area, far from a random accident. Given Sharon's known connection to Walter, she quickly became the prime suspect. Investigators pieced together that Sharon had allegedly picked Patricia up to talk things over, perhaps to discuss the affair and to diffuse tension. After that meeting, Patricia never made it back home, and forensic evidence showed that she had been shot multiple times by one of the weapons Sharon owned. Given the buildup of evidence, Sharon was arrested by the authorities and charged with Patricia's slaying. Notably, Walter Jones wasn't charged in relation to the crime, and it doesn't appear that he was considered seriously as a suspect. With the arrest for Patricia's slaying, authorities decided to take a closer look at Jimmy's death. They believed Sharon's involvement in Patricia's slaying suggested a pattern of using steel to solve personal conflicts, so to speak. However, the circumstantial evidence linking Sharon to both crimes proved tricky in court. Prosecutors found themselves juggling two separate cases with overlapping pieces of evidence and a lot of public scrutiny. The press had begun referring to Sharon as a femme fatale who lured men to their doom. While this made for a sensationalistic story that moved newspapers, it didn't help the prosecution in delivering clean, fact-based cases. Sharon's trial for the elimination of Patricia Jones came first in June 1961. The prosecution laid out a motive. Patricia was a rival in love, and Sharon wanted to remove her so she could have Walter Jones to herself. However, the jury ended up deadlocked, resulting in a mistrial. A second trial began in January 1962, and this time Sharon was convicted of Patricia's slaying. She was sentenced to life in prison for this offense. Yet she didn't remain behind bars for long, as that conviction was soon overturned by the Missouri Supreme Court due to legal errors during the trial. This meant Sharon would have to be tried yet again for Patricia's slaying. Before her third trial for Patricia's elimination could take place, she went to trial for Jimmy Kinney's death. That trial also ended in a hung jury. Eventually, the charges related to Jimmy's death were dropped, and Sharon was released on bond while awaiting the new trial for Patricia's slaying. In the midst of legal chaos, she was granted the freedom to move about as she awaited the retrial, a decision that would prove to be crucial to her future. In September 1964, Sharon decided to travel to Mexico with another man, allegedly for a vacation. While there, on September 18, 1964, a truly unexpected event happened. Yet another shooting occurred. This time, a Mexican-born American named Francisco Ordonez was shot to death in a motel. According to Sharon, Ordonez had tried to assault her, and she shot him in self-defense. She emphasized that she didn't mean to hit him square in the chest, and that she only meant to frighten him. Curiously, when a motel employee heard the sounds and ran to see what was going on, Sharon started blasting yet again, striking the employee in the shoulder. Mexican authorities were skeptical, and they took her into custody almost immediately. They believed that she attempted to rob Ordonez, and when he resisted, she ruthlessly eliminated him. Authorities further theorized that she had intended to slay the motel employee so as to close any loose ends on witnesses. This new shooting led to a trial in Mexico, where Sharon was convicted of slaying Ordonez. She was sentenced to a prison term in Mexico City and famously earned the nickname La Pistolera, a name that evoked a Wild West outlaw persona. On December 7, 1969, Sharon managed to escape from Ixtapalapa Women's Prison under circumstances that remain somewhat of a mystery. Some stories suggest she simply walked out during a power outage, while others claim she bribed guards or exploited poor security systems. Either way, once she left the prison, she vanished without a trace. Despite searches by the Mexican authorities, she was never found. Meanwhile, the United States also had an interest in rearresting her because of the pending retrial in Missouri for Patricia's slaying. Once Sharon disappeared, the FBI got involved briefly, but any leads that surfaced proved to be dead ends. Over the years, there have been rumors that she snuck back into the United States under a new identity, or that she relocated to some remote part of South America. Some speculated she might have died under unknown circumstances not long after her escape, given the difficulty of surviving off the grid as a wanted fugitive. None of these theories have been substantiated, and Sharon Kinney has remained officially at large for decades. Sharon Kinney's case is a masterclass in how charm, luck, and systemic failures can allow someone to evade justice. The fact that she escaped justice multiple times, whether through hung juries, overturned convictions, or a literal prison break, reflects how her cunning outpaced two legal systems. If Sharon Kinney survived her 1969 escape, it's highly likely she continued her pattern of extreme violence. Her history shows a clear pattern, turning to violence whenever confronted with personal conflicts. From the deaths of Jimmy Kinney and Patricia Jones to Francisco Ordonez to the attempt on the life of the motel employee, Sharon consistently attempted to blast her way through problems. If she escaped to a new life, it's reasonable to assume she faced further challenges, and given her history, she likely resorted to the same deadly methods she used in the past. Sharon Kinney's method of slaying sets her apart from most female perpetrators, who typically rely on less direct means like poisoning. This is one factor that's led to so much fascination with her case over the years. Her willingness to shoot her victims at close range suggests a brazen and heartless approach to her craft, generally only seen amongst men. This break from the stereotypical subtle perpetrator female archetype makes her case particularly fascinating. Okay, so as I was finishing up editing on this section of the video, I decided to fact-check something, and I discovered a much-needed update. On January 17, 2025, the FBI announced that a woman named Deidre Glebus, who lived in Alberta, Canada, and died in 2022, matched the fingerprints of Sharon. There's no other information out there about this at this time, but I suspect I'll have an update on her life on the run very soon. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here with a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy my consistent content output and want to keep supporting my work, please take a moment to share this video with 2 of your friends or family members. The sweating sickness was a mysterious and deadly condition that struck England and later parts of Europe during the late Middle Ages and early Renaissance period. It first appeared in 1485 and recurred in several outbreaks until it vanished in 1551. The first outbreak coincided with the end of the Wars of the Roses and the rise of Henry VII to the English throne. The disease caused widespread panic, as it quickly claimed thousands of lives, including figures such as 2 Lord Mayors of London and several members of the English nobility. Henry VIII was deeply fearful of the disease, and it influenced his policies and movements throughout his reign. His elder brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, is suspected to have died from the illness in 1502, which dramatically altered the line of succession and English history. Also, as a quick aside, the Tudors, being of Welsh origin, chose the name Arthur as the heir apparent to the English throne. This is thought to have been an attempt to enhance a Welsh claim over the English throne. Also, it raises the question as to what regnal number would have been used for a 16th century King Arthur. Would he have been King Arthur I or King Arthur II? The disease was marked by sudden and severe symptoms, starting with a sense of dread, followed by cold shivers, intense sweating, headache, severe body pains, and exhaustion. The initial trembling and high fever were followed by profuse sweating and a rapid decline into extreme fatigue and thirst. Unlike the bubonic plague, the sweating sickness did not cause visible sores or rashes, which added to its mysterious nature. Treatments of the time, based on the humoral theory of medicine, involved wrapping patients in heavy blankets to induce sweating and avoiding certain foods and mists thought to be harmful. If a patient survived the first 24 hours, they had a good chance of recovery, but many succumbed within that critical period. Despite its terrifying grip on Tudor England, the sweating sickness remains less well known than other historical epidemics like the Black Death. Its sudden disappearance after 1551 only adds to the mystery. The disease's swift vanishing act left a legacy of fear and speculation, influencing literature and popular culture long after it had gone. For instance, Shakespeare's play Henry IV Part 2 mentions a character dying of a sweat, potentially reflecting the lingering memory of the disease in the public consciousness. Over the centuries, numerous theories have been proposed regarding the cause of the sweating sickness. Some historians and scientists speculate that it could have been a form of hantavirus, which also presents with rapid onset fever and respiratory distress. These viruses are primarily found in rodents, and humans can contract the disease through direct contact with a variety of rodent related sources, including their droppings. Others have proposed that the outbreaks could have been caused by anthrax poisoning. In favor of this theory, it is speculated that spores from this bacterium might have contaminated raw wool or animal carcasses, infecting people who came into contact with these materials. Another theory points towards enteroviruses. Enteroviruses are a group of viruses that typically enter the body through the gastrointestinal tract and can cause a range of diseases. They're known for their ability to cause sudden epidemics with high fever and systemic symptoms, aligning with historical accounts of the sweating sickness. Some researchers suggest that an unknown or extinct strain of enterovirus might have been responsible for the outbreaks, given the rapid onset and resolution of the disease. On the evening of October 25, 1963, 16-year-old Raymond G. Carey Jr. left his family's home on Daniel Boulevard in Bloomfield, Connecticut, around 7:15 p.m. According to sources, he was initially planning to see a movie that night. Instead, for reasons unknown, he changed his plans and visited a local bowling alley before attending a Pi Kappa Sigma sorority dance at the Lithuanian Dance Hall. At the dance, Raymond mentioned to another attendee that he had secured a ride home. A witness later observed him leaving the venue with 3 other teenage boys. Notably, sources aren't clear just how old these teenage boys were. It's not clear whether they were college students or fellow high school students, and trust me, this will play a role going forward when we discuss theories of the case. Tragically, Raymond never returned home that night and has not been seen or heard from since. His parents reported him missing the following morning. At the time of his disappearance, Raymond was a junior at Bloomfield High School, residing with his parents and sister. He was an active member of his community, participating in basketball and softball teams at Bethel Baptist Church. Described as a responsible teenager with no history of running away, his sudden disappearance was both alarming and out of character. Despite extensive investigations by local authorities and ongoing efforts to locate him, Raymond's case remains unsolved. A number of theories are floating around about this case. One prevalent theory suggests that Raymond might have been the victim of a hazing ritual gone horribly wrong. Given that he was last seen leaving the Pi Kappa Sigma sorority dance with 3 other teenage boys, some speculate that these boys could have been members or associates of a fraternity. Under this theory, it's thought that the group may be conducting an initiation ceremony. It's posited that Raymond, though not necessarily a pledge, might have been coerced or invited to participate in activities that led to an unintended fatal outcome. The absence of concrete evidence and the unidentified status of these boys lends some weight to this theory. Another theory considers the possibility that Raymond left the dance with individuals intending on harming him. The 1960s were perceived as a more trusting era, and it's plausible that Raymond accepted a ride from completely unfamiliar people. This scenario raises concerns about foul play, suggesting that he might have fallen victim to individuals with malicious intent. The lack of witnesses or leads supporting this theory makes it speculative, yet it remains within the realm of possibility. However, circumstantially it makes sense, because of course the 3 boys he left with never came forward. A less discussed but conceivable theory is that Raymond chose to disappear voluntarily. Factors such as personal issues, academic pressures, or social challenges might have influenced such a decision. However, those who knew him described Raymond as a responsible teenager with no history of running away, making this theory less convincing. Additionally, leaving behind his family, friends, and activities he was passionate about, like sports and music, would have been uncharacteristic. Personally, I think the most likely scenario is that the 3 boys he left with intended to do him harm. Given that they were teenagers at the time of the incident, it's possible that all three of these individuals are still alive. The sheep squatch, also known as the White Thing of West Virginia, is a cryptid said to haunt the Appalachian wilderness. Described as a large, woolly, and horned beast, this creature blends the traits of a sheep and a predator, making it one of the more bizarre cryptids in American folklore. Sheep squatch sightings began gaining attention in the 1990s, though the region has long been a hotbed for folklore and stories of strange creatures. The cryptid's name derives from its peculiar appearance. Witnesses describe it as a large bipedal creature covered in shaggy white fur. It reportedly has a sheep-like face with ram-like horns, clawed hands, and sharp teeth. Its height is said to range between 6 and 9 feet, and it is often described as reeking of sulfur, a detail that has led some to associate it with paranormal or demonic activity. Early reports place sheep squatch sightings in Boone, Kanawha, Putnam, and Nicholas counties in West Virginia. One of the first documented encounters occurred in 1994 when a group of campers claimed they were terrorized by a large white beast that emerged from the woods. The creature reportedly growled at them and destroyed camping equipment before disappearing back into the forest. Since the 1990s, multiple sheep squatch sightings have been reported, each adding new details to the cryptid's lore. In one account from 1995, a motorist driving through Boone County spotted a massive woolly creature drinking from a creek. As the driver approached, the creature stood on 2 legs and fled into the woods, leaving claw marks on the ground. Another notable sighting occurred in 1999, when a group of teenagers hiking in the forest reported being chased by sheep squatch. They described it as running on all fours and emitting a terrifying scream. In another notable incident from 2015, residents near the Coal River reported hearing strange noises at night and discovering large clawed tracks near their homes. One witness claimed to see a creature matching sheep squatch's description lurking in the woods, though it vanished before they could photograph it. I note that while there's reports that claw marks were discovered, suspiciously there are no photographs of these markings available online. As with most cryptids, there are a variety of theories regarding the origins of sheep squatch. Skeptics often suggest that sightings are the result of misidentified wildlife. For example, a bear with mange or a large mountain goat could easily be mistaken for a strange, woolly creature in low light or from a distance. The region's dense forests and rugged terrain can also make it difficult to accurately gauge the size or shape of an animal. Others propose that sheep squatch is rooted in local folklore, with stories evolving over time to include more fantastical elements. The sulfuric odor often associated with sheep squatch has led to speculation that the creature is linked to paranormal phenomena, possibly as a demonic entity or a ghostly manifestation. Another theory ties sheep squatch to the Mothman, another famous West Virginia cryptid. Both creatures are said to be harbingers of disaster or omens of bad luck, leading some to suggest they are part of the same phenomenon, but interpreted differently by witnesses. Still others claim that the creature may be an interdimensional anomalous being that slips into our reality to terrorize teenagers walking through the woods. From a scientific standpoint, the existence of sheep squatch is highly unlikely. No biological evidence, such as hair samples, bones, or credible photographs, has been found to support the creature's existence. Furthermore, a largely bipedal creature with a sheep-like face and ram's horns defies evolutionary logic. Predators like the sheep squatch would have forward-facing eyes to detect prey. Sheep squatch has side-facing eyes to detect predators like prey animals do, despite being a predator animal itself. Further, Predators generally have sleek fur for the purposes of agility and camouflage, rather than heavy coats which are designed for long grazing sessions. Such a combination of traits would require a highly implausible set of mutations and adaptations that are just downright contradictory. Also, I never thought I would be sitting here analyzing the evolutionary biology of the sheep squatch, but hey, here we are.